Hello and welcome to the 19th episode of the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. My name's Ryan Blake, I'm the founder and CEO of Extreme Sports Performance. In this episode I'm speaking to Richard Husseiny. Richard is a high performance coach that focuses on leadership and transformation. He's the founder and owner of Husseiny Performance. I'll be asking the questions I ask all my guests. Who he is, what he does, where has he come from, what has he done along the way, what are the key moments from his career so far, what are his top areas of interest, what are the most valuable things he's learnt, who are his top influencers, what are his top resources for information, what are his top performance exercises and or drills, what are his top pieces of advice, and finally, where can people find him. We freestyle a lot in between questions. This is one of the most interesting episodes I've recorded to date, so I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Hi Richard, welcome to the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. Please can you start by just telling everyone who you are and what you do?
So who am I? So as I said, my name is Richard Husseiny. I'm a performance coach. A lot of my career was in professional sport, high performance sport as a strength and conditioning coach. I've now moved into still high performance coaching with regards to leadership and transformation.
Awesome. And can you just give us a little bit of a background of kind of where you've kind of started out and what you've done leading up to now?
Yeah. So I studied sports therapy at Chichester University. And then I did a Master's in Strength and Conditioning Science at St Mary's University in Twickenham. And predominantly for my career, I went from kind of sports therapy, sports massage, rehabilitation into performance training, so strength and conditioning. I've worked with Fulham Football Club, Harlequins Rugby League. I worked with English Institute Sport for Olympic cycle with British diving and some multi-sport, so some Paralympic athletes. And then following the London Games, I went to an opportunity to work with Exos in China, and I was there a few years working with predominantly with their judo squad, their Chinese Olympic judo squad, and Chinese Olympic Centre in Beijing and in Shanghai. So I worked with the Chinese divers in Beijing in the Olympic centres, and worked with judo in Shanghai under Exos. I left there due to family, my mother getting terminal cancer. Went through that, and then since then I've worked with Hinsa Performance, and I still do some consultancy now with British Ski and Snowboard, so particularly with Park and Pipe. But kind of the initial, that time frame of, I guess, going through that process of supporting my mother through cancer and the resulting grief and the life changes that happened from that, this is kind of, I guess, why I'm doing what I'm doing now, why I've moved away from full-time work in high performance sport.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Would you mind just giving us a little bit more information about the kind of things that you do on a day-to-day basis now?
Yeah, so my main, I guess what I do, my company, I work with my wife Anna. So in the sense that we work together on retreats. So we offer retreats that are aimed at leadership, at healing, and health and well-being. So that's one form of, I guess, area we're passionate about and part of our work. The second area we both run workshops, but I run workshops. For example, the last workshop I ran was with Ogilvy Health, so a big marketing company, and really taking the lessons from Olympic sport with regards to training and planning, and looking at how can we work or be at our optimal. So it's kind of very simple lessons from periodization, from, I can go into a bit more detail of that, but that's the retreats, that's the workshops, and I also do online coaching and coaching. So, and again, looking at development, looking at growth, looking at how can you or I be our best self with regards to health and well-being, with regards to mindset, and kind of transformation, very much from a place of how can you be your best self.
Brilliant. I find this fascinating because as we spoke last week about this, I just think it is an area that is almost avoided or not really kind of focused on very much these days, with still at the high performance like elite level. So it's a very interesting topic. Is this something that you've always had an interest in, or is this something that's kind of become obvious to you over time and you thought, yeah, this needs to be focused on with a little bit more detail and paid a lot more attention to?
I mean, I would say in my early days of strength and conditioning, I was naive and I assumed that what strength and conditioning coaches were the main thing, and that's what made performance, high performance what it is. I guess through professional experience, but also through life experience. Certainly from being in China, you get to see, one of the major lessons I took from there were that, you've got people who are the best in the world, yet doing things exceptionally different to the environment I came from, particularly going from the EIS straight into China, which is, from the EIS, very organised, very process-driven, very evidence-based, into a Chinese environment that was very much not that. But yet they're still a high-performance program, of course, because they're still achieving many, many medals on the world stage. So that kind of was really a big wake-up call to me, in the sense of, okay, well, there are different ways of doing things. I need to pay more attention and to open myself up. And then I guess with regards to mindset and with growth and with transformation, that came from the biggest area came from my own experiences of that, from being kind of completely broken in grief, and then stumbling across the Flow Genome Project, and kind of what they specialise in is coaching, and really at the heart of it is the flow state. So what they want to do is open source the biological signature of flow and then work backwards. So once you know what's going on in the body, you can then work backwards to initiate some triggers to set yourself up to be more likely to access flow state. And for me, learning about flow, doing training with them, it showed me a completely different level of life that it was new to me, this richness to life that was incredible. And two, it showed me how to just address my own behavior in this world to be more harmonious, to be less, things are happening to me, to more, okay, right, I control what I can control, and all based from kind of a mindset perspective. So yeah, that's kind of why I think that's so important, and from both. Yeah,
that's fascinating, really, really fascinating. And this is definitely an area, as I alluded to when we chatted last week, that I'm looking at more and learning more about, because I just think it's such a valuable tool to have as a coach, whether that is with athletes, or as a business leader, or as in a point of authority, like having that greater understanding and the greater amount of skills available to you to be able to communicate and see things you might have missed beforehand is invaluable. So it's really interesting. When you were in China, I can imagine one of the biggest challenges you had initially was probably communication.
Yes.
How did you go about tackling that in the first instance?
Not very well to start with. I was luckily provided a translator, and it's not just the communication, but you've also got a huge cultural difference. So failure or getting things wrong or having an open mindset to that alone is a huge cultural what's the word? I don't know. Kind of, it's not what is it? Not even accepted. It's not taken on. It's not seen as a good thing to make a mistake. So you don't want to be the person that's seen as they're very much about saving face, and that's typically an Asian thing anyway. But that was totally new to me, and so I had no understanding or concept of that. So really, what it taught me in time, in terms of your coaching, I did learn some Chinese, and it showed me that just allow the athletes to move. You don't have to use many words, and give them the freedom to experiment, which then kind of, for me, that's when I got some really good, the athletes got really good growth with regards to their movement and physical quality. So yeah, just a kind of really great experience to sort of really force me to look at how I coach.
Sure. How long were you there for?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. Did you notice a considerable difference in how you would approach things or do things at, like A, in a coaching instance, but B, in just kind of everyday life when you came back?
Yeah, definitely. So with regards to coaching, just there are many different ways to get high performance. Now, there are some very good ways and there are some not so good ways, but really it kind of showed me that and taught me that the athletes know what they need most of the time. And if you just provide an environment where they can thrive, and one of the biggest things that got me buy-in with regards to the coaches over there, the Chinese coaches, because of course, a foreigner that I was coming into their environment to try and make change was like, well, what are you doing? This is what we've always done. And so I just started to collect some very simple objective data regarding how their training was split up. So I wasn't even really doing anything. I was trying to just tidy up their gym sessions. I didn't start with kind of changing the programming or anything like that to start with, because I just wanted to see what they did. Anyway, over space of sort of 2-3 months, I collected some information, which then gave the coaches information on their program, which was kind of, I guess, novel to them, because it wasn't in their culture at that time to do that, to collect data. Very, very simple. And so that kind of really opened their eyes to, okay, well, this is really interesting, this is useful. And then from that point, I could carry on with it and had their blessings with that, and we worked together really, really well. So that's coaching. And then I suppose myself, my life, just to start letting things go, like the element of control that most of us try and control things in our life. In China, there is no such thing as control. Things just happen and you have to let them go. And I think on a bigger level, if we could, certainly for me, to nurture that skill to start to don't hold on, don't attach, don't predict everything that happens in your life. Like, just start to drop things, start to nurture that ability of non-attachment, I suppose.
So if you look back on your career to date, with what you used to do and all the way up to what you do now, would you say there are any key moments that stand out to you from that timeline?
Yeah, the London Olympic Games were amazing. To be involved with the British diving, at the London Games, to be in that environment, that atmosphere was amazing. It just really was a pinnacle. And I suppose, the mundane day-to-day of training in a pool in Southampton, all of a sudden they're in London and they're competing on the biggest stage in the world. That was just amazing. Just the team camaraderie, the atmosphere in London was just amazing. Secondly, China. China was just a completely incredible experience for me personally and professionally. It was amazing to see a completely different environment, to be allowed to see behind the Iron Curtain of China and what goes on, to meet some lovely, lovely people, and to work with Exos, which was great to see their philosophy and learn their philosophy. And finally, I guess doing what I do now, it's so enriching to be able to provide a platform for people to grow and to develop and to enable them to have different perspectives, and also to enable them to live a life that they want to live. It's just so rewarding, and it's why I do what I do now. And as much, there was a time when I moved away from sport when I felt, I was questioning it, and a big part of my identity was working with high performance athletes. But I'm completely over that now, and it's I'm so grateful to be able to bring what I've learned in professional sport, as well as upgrading myself and upskilling myself on different things, and being able to provide that to other people.
Who would you say who are your typical everyday clients or people that you get to work with?
Typical everyday, so typically people that are professionals, people who've got busy lives, parents, got people who own businesses, got doctors, and then big companies in London, like a marketing company. And although that sounds a big marketing company, they're still people. So that's why I kind of say professionals. Yeah, ultimately it's people who kind of want to be more, are seeking for something different in their life. They've had enough of what's going on right now, and they feel that there's more to life than what they're currently experiencing.
Could you give us some couple of examples of challenges that these people might have, like kind of the typical things that you'll face with, or the typical things that they want to change?
Often very frustrated business people, very short on time, frustrated, hitting brick walls, like just trying to go down an avenue that just keeps resisting them. Can you say your question one more time? Sorry, I've just forgotten it.
No problem at all. So I just wondered what the typical challenges, or the typical requests or things that people want to achieve when they work with you are.
Just the way the relationships, the way they see their life. Often, people are their own biggest limitation. Like ourselves are our biggest limitation, and so what's often said as well, that I'm not the best at selling, but what's often said is the services and the coaching that is provided and that they go through, it's shown them something they didn't realise they were looking for in terms of a new perspective. They're unhappy in relationships, both professionally, personally, and their life seems pretty mundane. In professional settings, say in London, very much about optimizing performance. But what is performance? Performance being cognition, being creativity, intuition, tuning people back into their bodies. Very simply, but kind of my kind of where I come from is very much the body is a whole ecosystem. The gut and the heart are speaking loudly all of the time. Great work by Zach Bush shows that for every 10 bits of information being transferred between the brain and the gut, 9 are going upwards. And again, amazing people at HeartMath Institute, 40,000 neurons in the heart. And again, the heart and brain are communicating all of the time. So how can you tune into this? How can you tune into your instinct, into your intuition, into your senses, rather than being lost behind your eyes? They're just sort of some very typical things that come up.
Really interesting. With regards to that, what would you say your top areas of interest are with regards to helping you do your everyday coaching with these people?
Top areas of interest. Flow state. I believe very much that we can't, as Einstein said, we can't solve a problem from the same level it was created on, same level of consciousness it was created on. So an area, a huge area of interest to me is consciousness, is death, but is consciousness ultimately, and the kind of, the expanse of consciousness that we have available, yet most of us use 1 or 2 levels of consciousness. A single rational level of consciousness are in the sense of looking at from biological, our brain is in high beta, we're taking in information, we're making sense of it. Our logical, rational mind is crucial and it's great, but it also gets in our way. And so, under flow states or non-ordinary states or altered states, our prefrontal mind, so our default mode, goes quiet. And our default mode is responsible for the sense of I and the sense of time. So in a flow state, signature of flow state is stir. So selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness. Selflessness being the sense of I disappears. We're just completely immersed in the present moment with one person, with a team of people, or on our own. There's no sense of worrying about if people like me, or if our inner critic goes quiet. T is timelessness, so that's probably the most common recognizable signature. Time slows down or speeds up. You could be doing some form of activity that you're completely engrossed in, and 2 hours can go past in 5 minutes. Or in a near-death experience, for example, time often slows down, or if you're in a car crash. So time is distorted. E is for effortlessness. You're just in the present moment. You're just doing. You're not thinking about what you have to do and how you do it. You're just doing it. And R is richness. And I guess the most interesting area for me is the information that's accessible in these non-ordinary states, in these altered states. Increased pattern recognition, increased intuition, increased creativity. And so insight, I don't know, the way I relate that to an everyday moment would be if you're sat at a desk and you're bashing your head against a project that you're working on and you're just stuck and you're just trying to force it. For me, if I go out on a bike ride or if I get into nature, often when I'm not thinking about something, all of a sudden the insight will come to me. That's on a very micro level of flow and insight. This leads into, I guess, another area of interest for me is, how to get into these non-ordinary states. amazing research coming out now regarding psychedelics and the clinical use of, with regards to post-traumatic stress, with regards to trauma, with regards to depression, anxiety, and obviously in certain countries now it's legal. So with regards to creativity now, cannabis is an amazing compound, and loads of research out of America, but also from Israel. Actually, Israel produces a lot of research on cannabis, and I guess one of the most interesting facts to me is that our bodies have an endocannabinoid system in. So we're built to receive these. We're built to receive it. And it's almost like a second immune system. So cannabis kind of helps to restore homeostasis, hence why medical marijuana is having such profound effects. There's a real reason to what's going on. And also as well, another area, or kind of link the psychedelics, kind of end-of-life care. That's something I want to investigate with regards to non-profits later in this business, but it's not for right now. But certainly, how can we enrich someone's life, even if they can't be cured? How can we let them? What environment can be there to enable them to let go of fear and to just be with their families, be however they want to be for the remaining time? And which ties into death. That's another kind of interesting area.
Amazing. No, that's truly amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. What would you say, based on everything you've done in your career, and what we've just spoke about, and how you've kind of transitioned from elite sport to more of a holistic approach to kind of everyday people, what would you say the most valuable things you've learned are?
The most valuable thing I've learned is that we have everything we need if we get out of our way, if we get out of our own way, in the sense of healing, in the sense of creativity, in the sense of performance. We just know what we need. So tuning into our instinct, our intuition, rather than kind of allowing our negative chatter, our internal doubt, that mind take control, be the lead. Like it's an amazing tool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing the mind. The brain is highly needed. Without the brain, we're not here. But its function is optimal when it's helping, not when it's deciding, in my opinion. And I kind of look, taking back to, I guess, going back to athletes. For some reason, I've worked in acrobatic sports most of my career. And you just got to look at them and the way they go about things, particularly the snow sport or the action sport athletes. I know you've got experience in this as well, but they're doing things that are very, very rare. And so, there's one thing for me to say, well, you need to do this and you need to do that to make you more perform better and to less chance of getting an injury. But ultimately, they know what they need, and they're very highly tuned. Their mind and body are completely linked. There's no separation. They know that they go by gut instinct. And often, again, and I don't know if you've had this in your experience, but certainly my experience of hearing them, when they got injured, they've known that they shouldn't have gone. They've just gone for it because obviously they feel fear, but there's a deeper knowing in them that sometimes if they don't listen to that, it often leads down the wrong road. So that's in a nutshell.
I can really relate to that. So as we spoke about briefly last time we chatted, like I used to wakeboard quite a lot when I was younger, and I was fortunate enough to get to travel around the world and represent Great Britain at different competitions in different countries, which was truly amazing, really, as I suppose as a young man who loved extreme sports. And there was a time when I was in a competition in Sweden, which was it's kind of a combined extreme sports competition. So they had freestyle motocross, they had skateboarding, and wakeboarding. It was a huge event at this most beautiful location. And on the second day, we were doing some qualifying runs, and I'd recently just landed a new trick before I'd gone out about a week before. So I thought, I'm going to try and put it in my run, just to try and maximise my chances of qualifying and doing well. And unfortunately, it couldn't have gone worse, because I did it and it came in way too fast and over-rotated quite a lot, hit the water so quickly I knocked myself out and started drowning. unconsciously and sinking. And I obviously wasn't aware of all this, but one thing that I was aware of was this absolute, complete and utter state of relaxation and peace when it happened. And I just had this very vivid image of this kind of dull light and like a very warming blue colour around me, feeling like no pain or no senses, but just being completely relaxed.
Great.
And then all of a sudden, next thing I knew was a couple of days later, and I woke up in intense pain, and I had pipes coming out of me and all sorts of stuff. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I had a really bad accident. But at the time it happened, my body had seemed to kind of go into this almost like self-preservation mode, which was one of the most peaceful feelings I've ever had. But as soon as I had to kind of come back to reality, and like the medical staff at the hospital were trying to, I suppose, change things or change the way my body wanted to be, it was the complete opposite feeling. So does that can you relate to that at all, or have you had any kind of similar experiences?
Very much. Like I believe so. Well, one, there's an amazing story about an ex-athlete called Janine Shepherd. She's got a TED talk. It's called "A Broken Body Isn't a Broken Person." But the podcast I'm thinking about is Neuron Fire by Dr. Bark. But anyway, she turns into a very detailed story, kind of like what you said. It's fascinating. In terms of the body knowing what to do, I completely believe full-heartedly, and from what I've seen, the body has an innate ability to heal. Now, I talk about my experience, but I'll link a bit further out to research. I have got into I love a huge interest for breath work. There's amazing people out there. Brian McKenzie from Power Speed Endurance is looking at breath from a point of view of performance and linking it to anxiety, depression. So linking, say, CO2 tolerance. If we have a poor CO2 tolerance, that's directly correlated to anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. But the breath work that I'm fascinated with is transpersonal type of breath work, in particular holotropic breath. And holotropic breath was created by Professor Stanislav Grof, who was a traditionally trained psychiatrist, psychotherapist back in the 50s in Czechoslovakia. And he was one of the first people to start to use LSD, so psychedelic, in clinical settings. Obviously, the prohibition happened, psychedelics were banned worldwide, yet he knew the healing benefits of these compounds. And he looked back at the patients that he saw, and he saw that there was this breathing technique that they would do to try and keep the experience going. Anyway, a few years later, he came up with this holotropic breathwork to music, this very particular style of breathing, hyperventilation type breathing. And from what I've seen in my own experience of doing it, and from my learning of it, and I'm continuing to learn from it, and I want to be a holotropic breath facilitator someday, the body knows how to heal. And it's, in a way, beyond what mainstream Western medical model sees. But the research is there to kind of prove that, and link into some mindset. So I would definitely recommend someone to check, if you're interested in this, check out Stanislav Grof, Professor Stanislav Grof, as well as Dr. Joe Dispenza. And Dr. Joe Dispenza is using breath, is using meditation in a similar way. I guess he's looking at the biological, what's going on in these states? How can we get into these states? And then just let what happens happen. And he's having absolutely amazing results with terminal cancer patients, with multiple sclerosis, with the list goes on. And it's, big, bold statements to say that you can cure from that, but he's repeatedly coming up with amazing results. So I guess tying it into what you said, the body has an incredible innate ability to heal, in my experience.
It's something that's always stuck with me, to be honest, Richard. And I tell people about this, and they kind of, quite a lot of people don't quite know where to go with it, because I think unless you've experienced something like that, or you've read about something like that, it's hard to really how to interpret it. It was strange because I used to go up until that point. I was, late teens, 19, I suppose, nearly 20. I used to go at things like an absolute nutcase, and my fear factor really was very low. I'd done Zuckerman's sensation-seeking scale tests and like cortisol tests at uni that year, and like my readings were that of what you were suppose you would call someone who was an adrenaline junkie, and my fear was never a real issue up until that point that had happened, and anyway, about a month later, when I kind of fully recovered, I came back and started wakeboarding again. I remember it clear as day. I went out and just did a few of the tricks that I knew I could do, which I wasn't scared of or wasn't really fearing. But then I knew in the back of my mind, if I don't land this trick, it's almost killed me. I'm never going to get over it. So the first time I cut in to do it, I thought you can't back out of this. You just got to do it. So I cut in and did it perfectly. The most perfect time I've ever done it. Landed it. And I had such a sense, I suppose, of relief, but sort of such like an overload of emotion that I kind of broke down and just like threw the handle, and that was it. Took my board off and I was done. But in a way, I'm really glad that I had done that, because I think it would have probably haunted me if I hadn't.
Yeah.
But that changed my life. That experience really. I started to kind of still do other extreme sports. I mean, I still surfed a lot and snowboarded a lot and really enjoyed that. But wakeboarding definitely took a bit of a back seat then, because it turned into something that I had to do because I had to become better if I wanted to improve and keep wakeboarding all these competitions. And and that wasn't why I first started it. I just did it because I loved it and it was fun.
I think that's great to hear. Like I want to pick up on what you said about that in terms of that emotional release from that experience.
Yeah.
You know, you in terms of, I guess, linking to a flow, or you most probably in that moment doing that trick, you're pushing yourself. But I guess what I love about the Flow Genome Project is using these states. So, for example, that experience was a huge. Western society. I guess I'm bringing it back to the kind of an area that I'm interested in. Western society is, Western society is living on a slow drip cortisol. We're looking at our phones 24 hours a day, straight before we go to sleep, right when we wake up. We're on this low drip, sympathetic tone predominance most of our lives. And I guess what sounded like from your experience, and certainly kind of how I feel about these non-ordinary states, or these big experiences, is that it's almost like a reset to our system. It's got a big emotional release. Pretty, fried. I don't know if that resonates with you, but certainly kind of what the Flow Genome are going on about, and what I like to teach and like to just really fascinated with regards to kind of using these at key moments, to push yourself, but then to kind of, it's not about keeping them going, but using them as key moments throughout your year.
I completely relate to that. And the other thing which was really apparent from the experiences, it reset the way I go about everything in all the other aspects of life. How I look after myself, how I look after other people, how I'm more aware of things I was less aware of before, how more appreciative I am of things that I suppose I took for granted. Like it was quite an enlightening experience, and they do say that you have to have these extreme experiences in life or these extreme situations to kind of almost be snapped out of what you think is a reality, but it's probably a false one.
Very, very true. Very true. I think that ties into why I'm so interested about death. It is the guarantee of at some point of our life, and but to me, it allows, kind of like as you said, by really thinking about it and being aware of it, it just changes perspective on life. And for me, it helps me live life to the fullest, and it gives me more of an appreciation for the day to day. Now, don't get me wrong, I still get lost in my stories, but I can come back quicker with that appreciation of what really matters in life.
I mean, I could talk about this all day. It just does fascinate me, and that's why it's been so great to get you on the show, just to give a different perspective to the things the guests usually talk about. So I just wanted to kind of just go off at a different tangent here and just, I mean, I know you've mentioned a few people and a few resources, which I will put all that information in the show notes. So when people listen to the show, that they'll be able to click on the links and resource them straight away for themselves.
Right.
Who would you say your kind of top influences have been over your career?
Over my career, okay. I guess so. In a back to my, I guess where I am right now, the biggest the influence that were in my professional career as a strength and conditioning coach are now kind of not so much great people, but I guess who I look up or I look to now, certainly Jamie Wheel from the Flow Genome Project. He's executive director of the Flow Genome Project. He's written a few books. His latest was Stealing Fire with Stephen Kotler. Just that it really resonates what he's trying to do, what his organisation is trying to do. He is a highly sharp individual, far sharper than me. But what I love listening to him and the training that I've done with him has just been so enlightening. And I think, certainly for me, I think, the change we want to see in the world, we have to start with ourselves. But at the same time, his organisation is really trying to open source non-ordinary states, flow states, so more people can access them. So then, as you say, kind of have a wake-up moment. As you just said, that accident was a wake-up moment for you. Certainly losing my seeing death, seeing the final moments of cancer and all of that kind of stuff. That was my wake-up call. And I think very often we can get lost in our stories and our day-to-day and our lives of what doesn't work and who's done this to us and all that kind of stuff. But I think those wake-up moments are crucial to kind of level ourselves up and to be the change we want to see in the world. And there's no doubt that I don't want to get political and that kind of thing, and I guess struggle to talk about this, but I think certainly what I read, and you come away from mainstream news and you start to look at people who are making sense to me anyway. Kind of, there's not a lot of time to correct some things in the world, and I think we have to start with ourselves. And the best way to do that for me is to nurture those big moments to wake ourselves up. So that's Jamie Wheel. Another one is Zach Bush, MD. He's an amazing man. He's been on multiple podcasts as well. He's just an incredible person. Like, he's a triple board certified clinician in intensive care in America, so intensive care units, so ER, in endocrinology and in oncology. He spent a lot of his career trying to develop cancer treatment. Obviously, I've come through this from my experience of the British system of cancer and the mainstream treatment of cancer, and so I've just stumbled upon all this stuff and realised that there's so much more we can do than, as great as the mainstream is and as crucial it is, because not everyone has access to this information, even though we do because it's just on the internet. He's just an amazing person, and I think what I take from him, what he's trying to do with regards to farming in America and worldwide, links to glyphosate. So a really commonly used pesticide that's water soluble, that's in 75-80% of the world's water and food chain, which causes damage to the gut, which causes stress in the body. And Monsanto, who was the original, they actually sold it, but they don't own glyphosate anymore, but they have been sued successfully by one person, one farmer, who was shown that caused cancer. I'm not going to go into the big detail, like someone you need to check out, Zach Bush, but certainly his products and his research and the non-profit that he's doing is, for me, amazing. So that's two. The last person I would say there are two. There would be Ramdas. So I don't know if you heard of Ramdas. Ramdas was originally named Richard Alpert, so Professor Richard Alpert. He was a professor at Harvard in the 60s with Professor Timothy Leary when psychedelics went a bit crazy in the States. Anyway, he's turned into this amazing story. There's a great Netflix show called Dying to Know, and you can learn about them on there. But he's just an amazing spiritual leader, I suppose, and kind of I love how he addresses the big questions of life. Also relate that, I said two, kind of Russell Brand. I didn't used to like Russell Brand, but from seeing someone again go through his experience of transformation, coming from being a drug addict, but the way he deconstructs his life and the way he himself is a spiritual, I guess, I don't know the word, but it just resonates with me so much. Not that I was a drug addict, but trauma and how to see that. Yeah, so they're four people, sorry.
No, thanks very much for those. I'll definitely, as I alluded to before, I'll make sure all those links go in the show notes so people can check them out themselves.
Great.
So, if you needed to find out some new information about something you weren't quite sure about, you needed to check something, what would you say your top resources would be to source that?
I would look to people rather than a resource, I suppose.
Yeah.
Again, I would look at those three or four people.
Yeah.
Social media is both amazing and also a very highly negative thing. Depending how you use it, if you use it as a tool, it's wonderful. So, you obviously can pick up information there, but I would say it's people I respect. Obviously, being aware that there's probably a confirmation bias in what people are saying. The people I follow are probably, there's a bias to what they say, but I do try and keep I don't think I'll ever be unbiased, but I just look at people I respect and trust in that context.
Love it. That's a really good answer, and I think it depends what you're looking for as well, doesn't it? I mean, There's so many things that we need to find out about all the time that your gut instinct or your initial thoughts on it are usually pretty accurate.
Yes.
And there's always going to be someone that I think your mind will kind of guide you towards, even if you're not sure. So I think people over machines or people over computers definitely first.
Definitely.
Even though the machines can help, I wouldn't be my personal go-to either. So this next question always causes people to I suppose to not want to answer it. I wanted to talk to you about something regarding exercises and drills. So if you think back on all of the different sports you've worked with, and including the people you work with now, well, not necessarily athletes, what would you say that the top exercises or drills that you've done? And I'm sure you've done a lot of different ones with a lot of different people. Are there any standout ones you just think this is just awesome? It works really well, and this is probably up there with and above the others.
Okay, I will say first one. I'll definitely bring it to more of a drills and exercises. But I guess the first one I say is breath. Tune into breath. Use breath. Learn about breath. Learn how to breathe properly. It's the remote control to our brain, and to learn how to breathe properly, you don't have to be master student to understand this. Like go to Brian McKenzie, go to Power Speed Endurance, have a look on their website. Really simple things on there. I've learned this, but I kind of want to put you to the people who are leading the field in that area. Just learn about breath. Start to practice breath. Use breath, and see how it changes your state, because it's profound. It's really, really profound. That also links into Stanislav Grof. But I think at the very start, use breath to take control of your internal world. Having said that, too, exercises. Like you say, depending on the person, assuming you've got someone fit and healthy, I love a squat. I just like just lift load through full range in a full body movement. I think that's great. I think lower body power, got lower body strength, trunk stability, bracing.
Yeah.
Kind of lots of qualities ticked off there.
Yeah. Well, so it's kind of a one exercise fits all kind of category, really. I suppose if it's done properly, it's brilliant. Love it. So breathing and squats, love it. Also interrelated as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that. Good stuff. And as I'm sure that all of the listeners will probably laugh when I mention that. Previous guests have almost lost their shit when I've asked them that, because they're like, "What was it's a stupid question." That there's thousands that I could say, but it's just the ones I just like to hear. The ones that people will always probably put at the forefront of their mind. I was speaking to Nick Grantham not so long ago, and he had some quite comical things to say when I asked him that. So if people have not listened to that episode, give it a listen, because it's quite funny.
I'll have to. He was at the Red Bull coaches forum the other day, and he said there are 4 people that like the gym. You got rugby players, weightlifters, Olympic lifters, and bodybuilders, and that's it. And it's just, I think that rings quite true. I don't know, kind of in the sense of exercises, and I don't know, it just tickled me when he said that.
So you just actually reminded me, I've just completely escaped my escape mate. Could you just give us a little bit of an insight to the Red Bull Coaches Forum and what went on there?
Yeah, a really great day. Darren Roberts, I love Darren Roberts, he's brilliant and kind of really carved his niche in this field, and just put an amazing day. And what I loved about it is, again, lessons from these high-performing people we can all take from, and with regards to, you know, how they go about. They seem very chaotic on the outside, and I suppose if you watch the films, the programs on, you know, on Red Bull TV, and you think, look at how people, they go about their life. They seem erratic and crazy, but in fact they're very calculated. And some of the things I took away from it was, you know, fear is healthy, and the reason fear is healthy because it forces focus. So, yeah, one of the things I think relating that to normal life, like if you want to go, there's always a fear behind change, and there's always a fear behind going for something that you want, but it's also a healthy thing. And change that word. They changed the word from fear, or some of them did anyway, change the word fear to focus. I'm going to enter focus now. Change your language you use around that. They use visualization. So, you know, to what they want and how they want it to go rather than what they don't want. They get comfortable with the consequence of risk. So that acceptance kind of unlocks a lot of freedom for them, because they realise what they're about to do. They realise what risks are involved. Are they happy with it? Yes. Okay, well then that's it. You can go for it. You can be completely focused in that moment. They trust their process.
Yeah.
So it just allows them to have a very clear mind when it matters. Otherwise, you know, once they're towing into that wave, or once they come onto that, you know, if the break's an incredible day, once they come to that day and they're on the boat out to the waves, they think, oh, I've done everything I can in my power to be as the best person I am right now. Let go. And again, that ties into us. And I think innovation and creativity can't exist without failure. And failure is just learning. That's all it is. Failure is such a bad context. You know, I linked back to China, how failure or getting things wrong was seen negatively, but it's crucial. It's crucial for all of us to learn and to improve and to see our blind spots, you know. Go on, sorry, you say?
No, I was just about to say, mate, sorry to interrupt. I was just saying that failure at the moment, as you know, I work with a lot of youth athletes, multi-sport youth athletes at the moment, ranging from, you know, 12 to 18 years old. And the one thing which is overwhelmingly apparent is they all fear failure. And so I'm spending quite a lot of my time getting them to be comfortable with it, and to get them to know that it's okay. It's okay to fail.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of being here. Is learning, as you just said, and getting them more comfortable with that, and giving them different tasks to try and do, which are probably going to allow them to fail, but be okay with it, and be able to accept it and be comfortable with it. But it fascinates me how, as you've just rightly said, that it's so misinterpreted.
For sure.
I just interrupted you then. You were going to say something about breath.
They use breath control and mindfulness, you know,
yeah.
whether it's a snowboarder about to drop into a slopestyle course at Olympic Games, or whether it's a big wave surfer on the boat out to the big waves. Like there's a moment where they need to get in check, and they know, you know, they kind of, it silences their ifs and buts, the what ifs and the doubts. You know, it brings them into the present moment. They're in the present moment and they can let go. Whereas if they're in their mind, they're thinking, well, God, it's big today, or what if this happens? What if I do this? You know, just forget that. Obviously, easier said than done, but a practice of breath, a practice of that on a daily basis is like anything. It's a skill you can train. The more you train it, the better you'll get it, and the better your body will respond to it, and the quicker you'll be to get into a place of peace.
Awesome. Absolutely love it. So I promised to keep you for an hour, and it's coming up to an hour. So I've got one more question for you. And this is the one I love asking all the guests more than all the others. I don't tell the other questions I've got favourites because I don't want to make the other questions jealous. But this one is definitely my best one to ask. So what would be your top pieces of advice
first one would be to look for the magic in life. Don't be consumed by what people think, what you feel people want you to do, by what you feel you should do. Do what you want to do. Obviously, once you're in line with that, that's obviously going to lead into probably some service, helping others. But don't be worried what other people do, and look for the magic in life, because there is magic in life. I never realised there was, but there really, really is, and science has shown that in a way, and certainly, looking at flow state, looking at kind of what's accessible in a non-ordinary state, like there's magic there. 2, I would say regarding health and well-being, look broader than just the Western model. Look at all aspects, take into account, and I kind of break that, not I break down, but I agree completely with the components of health and well-being include the physical, they include the emotional, they include the energetic, and they include spiritual. Now, 2 of those words can spark a bit of I'm making it up, putting words out there. So obviously physical, look after your body, do things that feel good, do things that are good for you. Emotional, mental health is massive. Like, it's express your emotions. There's many different ways. Like, be aware of so many different things to say on this, but just be aware of your emotions and find an outlet. You can process your emotions. You can let your emotions out. You can talk about your emotions. Energetic. Now, this came to me late, but I've experienced energetic healing with regards to a shaman. I needed it I had half my thyroid removed a few years ago. My mum actually died of thyroid cancer, and it wasn't related. But anyway, I've been reading lots and lots and had energetic healing, and kind of it just is just incredible and profound, and a huge part to what health is. I could put you onto the Four Winds Society. Is a great website to check out, and that's who one of the shamans I saw came from. I would just check them out and just be open. Just don't ignore it. Just sit with it, and especially if you're ill, like, look at those. And of course, spiritual. Spiritual to me simply means connection. It doesn't have to be assigned to any one tradition over another. And I think kind of connection is at the heart of what it is to be a human being, and that's crucial to health and well-being. You miss one of those, then in my professional opinion, you're missing the complete kind of what it is to be well, and what it is at the root cause of health. And chronic inflammation, chronic stress is the cause for probably every chronic disease out there. So that's what I would say about that. I think is that enough?
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What a fantastic way to end the show. I'd just like to say before we wrap up, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure having you on, Richard. Fascinating talking to you.
It's been great. Thank you for having me on.
Oh no, you're so welcome, and again, thank you so much for giving up your time. If people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So my website is www.husseinyperformance.com. And then I'm most active on social media on Instagram, so it's at Husseiny Performance. And on both those, you can have my emails there. My email is richard@husseinyperformance.com. So any of those can contact me, and I'd love to hear from anyone that is interested in what we've been talking about.
Amazing. And as some listeners might have gathered, you're based down on a coast from the noise of the seagulls earlier.
That's
you're
right.
Based down in Brighton, right?
Yes, yeah, Brighton.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Great.
I'll put those links with all the other things that we've spoke about and all the other brilliant references you've shared with us. I'll put them all in the show notes so people can click on those directly. But please stay on the line whilst I end recording. But again, thanks very much for your time and everything you shared with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the 19th episode. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please leave us a rating and or review on whichever platform you're listening on. Please check out our website, www.extremesportsperformance.com. On our media page, we have weekly blogs that include Thought of the Week, Exercise of the Week, Recipe of the Week, and Training Song of the Week. Each month's collection gets compiled into our monthly newsletter along with company service and store updates. You can sign up for free to receive this via our subscribe page. Our online store consists of training programs, online and in-person coaching, nutrition plans, toolbox and interactive training systems. Please follow us on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Links to these can be found at the bottom of every page on our website or via any search engine. That's all for now. Until next time, take care.